we're going to move to our next speaker, Eyal Cahana, who is the Knowledge Capital Practice Lead for Deloitte. And he is a longtime KM practitioner, and in his current role, he assists clients with challenges around their most valuable asset, knowledge, and by defining and implementing end-to-end KM programs from strategy to technology, he helps them capture the knowledge and experience accumulated in the organization and make it available and actionable for reuse and learning in the flow of work. Yeah, sorry, I don't want to get in your way. And he's going to talk to us today about from knowledge management to knowledge capital, making knowledge a source of growth. Yep. Take it away.
All right.
Yes, give him a clap to start.
Okay. Where's here it is, right?
Yeah, we need to grab a cable from over there. So
All right. I'll wait.
it'll be a second. So.
Can you hear me?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Okay, I got it. Okay.
Good morning. I can project. Worst case, if the mic doesn't work, I can scream. All right. So that was a long introduction. Thank you very much for coming here this morning. I'll start with the first question I always get is how to pronounce my name. It's Eyal Cahana. Jane did a great job there, so thank you. And I lead Deloitte's Knowledge Capital practice here in the US, and I'll explain why we moved from knowledge management to knowledge capital in a few minutes. But I want to start with a quick introduction. I started my career as an agent in the contact center many years ago. I was a heavy and engaged knowledge management user. But I got formally to be part of a knowledge management practitioner about 17 years ago when I was the enterprise knowledge management lead for that organization. Then I switched lines and I worked for a KM software company in various roles for several years. My last role there was their product director. Everyone is a director in tech, so that was me as well. And afterwards, at the past 8 years at Deloitte, I help organizations like yours define and implement end-to-end knowledge management programs from strategy to technology and execute the roadmaps. So there are three things I want to leave you with today. One is change the way you think about KM, like broaden the way you think about KM. The second one is change the way you talk about KM. And the third one is how to start your KM and AI journey. We have a lot to cover. I have 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to do it quickly. All right. With a show of hands, how many of you are currently leading KM activities within your organization or part of a KM team or heavily involved in KM-related activities? Show it. Not surprising, yeah? Keep your hand up if you feel like you have enough leadership support and buy-in. Okay, I see a few hands. Some are happier than others. It makes sense. Keep your hand up if you feel like you get enough budget and resources for your KM activities. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the diamond and platinum sponsors keep your hand up very happily, you know that. So yeah, what does that tell us? It tells us that we are KM professionals. We understand the value of knowledge management. For some reason, we cannot translate it to actually getting budget to sustain it. Our leaders don't understand what we're doing. They don't really, they keep deprioritizing knowledge management. It keeps becoming like a nice to have thing. They don't understand the ROI behind it. And it's just hard for us to tell a compelling story around it. We need to start with the basics, though. We need to talk about knowledge management, and this is the first thing I want to talk to you about, is to broaden the way you think about knowledge management. I wouldn't be a good consultant without a framework, right? So this is our framework. Deloitte's knowledge management framework is a 6-dimensional one that talks about the fact that you need to address all those 6 dimensions in order to have a good, sustainable, and successful KM program in your organization. But you need to think about it as a business-led, technology-enabled solution, right? Most organizations we talk to think about knowledge management as a tech solution. And that is an issue. Now, I could spend an entire day talking about just this slide, but I have 15 minutes. Jane here will hook me off the stage if I stay longer than 15 minutes. So I'm going to cover just 2. If you want to talk to us about all of those, come to our booth. We're more than happy to talk to you about that. But I want to talk about governance and content, probably the least sexiest things in knowledge management. But it's super important to talk about governance because we see lack of ownership, definitely business ownership and content ownership in many organizations. No one knows who manages the content. So lack of ownership, so totally disorganized processes around content. So how does content become available? And also, what is the source of truth? So if we want technology to work, we need to define the source of truth, one source of truth, and remove contradictions, remove duplications. That happens just when you have governance on top of that. So that's one. The second one is around content. If you don't define your knowledge architecture, if you don't define your taxonomy, your metadata, what we see is disorganization. We see content that is inconsistent, that is hard to find, hard to understand, lots of jargon that we're using in our content that no one can decipher. If we can't understand it, a bot won't understand it too, right? So we need to touch the content. We need to make sure that we define the taxonomy and metadata, apply it, so we can make sure that we can apply context to that content and define which persona needs to get that content when and how in which channel, right? So governance and content are super important. So my objective number 1 is how to broaden the way you talk about KM, because what we see is that if you go with a tech-first approach, you'll get a shiny object, but it won't necessarily be connected to your business need. We see that over and over again. And the way it translates is that many organizations are struggling. They are struggling. And we see that through maturity assessment surveys that we do with organizations based on our proprietary maturity model. They're kind of in the realm of the developing and foundational, and they can't seem to get up. And not surprisingly, although they are tech first, technology is usually the lowest maturity level. It tells you there is disconnection between the two, right? So you need to make sure that you cover all 6 dimensions. It cuts across industries. You can see that here. It also cuts across functions in organization. It doesn't matter if you are in the contact center, in HR support, IT support, enterprise level, whatever you have, all of them are struggling. Now you'll see here in the conference, lots of technologies. And that's great. You need to engage with them, understand what they give you. They give you great user experience, great user interface, great promises to make your lives better and the lives of your users and your customers better. But you need to broaden the way you think about it. You need to make sure that you think about it a bit differently. Otherwise, you will keep on struggling. And the reason why we move from knowledge management to knowledge capital is part of it is that, but part of it is what I mentioned earlier. We just can't seem to tell a compelling story about knowledge management, right? Our leaders don't understand the ROI, but we need to look at knowledge management as currency. We need to look at knowledge as currency, as something that becomes a source of growth to the organization, something that you can capitalize on, right? So our leaders think about knowledge management as something daunting, like a daunting task, like a library, something that like our grandfathers used to do. But we need to be innovative in the way that we're thinking about it. It is a source of growth in the organization. I'm going to talk about just the first 2, about ROI, for example. It's beyond the financial metrics, right? The ROI for knowledge management can help with operational efficiencies, can help us gain better learning, reskilling of our workforce, which is critical in the gig economy that we have today. It's critical for us to be able to transition people from different roles and become more agile and more flexible in the way that we are managing our workforce, right? So ROI is a key parameter that our leaders need to understand. The second one is knowledge currency. It becomes something that we need to be able to exchange and maintain, so we make it available for our users, and it becomes something super valuable for the users to constantly use. In the influx of information that we have today, it's critical to look at knowledge as a currency, as a valuable asset that we need to manage. So you need to change the way you talk about KM with your leaders, which are my second objective for today. Change the way you talk with your leaders about KM as something that brings value, you can capitalize on, you can grow using knowledge management. And I mentioned technology earlier. Technology is important. It's a major enabler, right? So I do advise when you talk to your leaders to talk to them to show them technology, so show them something tangible, demonstrate something, the art of the possible with technology, in parallel to talking about that. And when we talk about technology, We cannot talk about AI. That's probably the main disruptor in today's, in knowledge management today. All the C-suite are talking about, the CIOs, CTOs, all of them just want it all and want it now, if you know the Queen song, right? So they just want it yesterday, and it's very hard to say no to that. But I do want to demystify like a couple of things using a true or false game. True or false? We don't need to fix the content. If we implement Gen AI, it will solve all of our content finding problems. True or false? Yes, right. If I can't understand the content, as I said earlier, if I can decipher it, no bot will be able to understand it. There is no chance that they can do that themselves. So definitely false. Second question. AI eliminates the need for human labor, can work without humans, and will take all of our jobs. True or false? Probably there's someone here, like the paranoid ones, thinks it's true, but it is false. So it's safe to say that to the best of our knowledge today, humans will always be in the loop. And I think Kim and Sandra talked about that earlier. We can't replace human interaction. Innovation happens when we interact. It does force us to think differently about our jobs. It requires us to reskill ourselves. But we are still going to be here, hopefully. And they will not replace us. But it does force us to change the way our teams look like. And we at Deloitte have a concept of super teams, which basically means we need to let computers do what they do best, let humans do what they do best, and create a synergy between the two, and create something that actually works together to streamline the way that we work, to make it work more efficiently, right? So the super teams here help us to do things better. That is super critical. Probably the most exciting times in KM, because what AI, and specifically Gen AI, does, it puts knowledge management at the forefront of organizational growth. And it's an opportunity for us to do things differently and show real value. But it also comes with risks, and we need to make sure that we realize that, right? When we talk to our leaders, put them a little bit to the ground. Dreams are great, but we need to also talk about the fact that if you get the wrong answer, that's a problem. That's a big problem. If I ask, in the outside world, if I ask a Gen AI bot, like an Excel formula to help me build my nutrition calculator, and it's a real thing, I do have one, an Excel-based one, and if I do that, the worst case, I'm not going to grow much with my muscle because I can't calculate my calories properly. So that's the worst thing that can happen. I can fix that. But in an organizational world, if I'm an agent in a contact center and I'm asking the bot a question, I'm getting the wrong answer, a made-up answer because of it hallucinates, that's a big problem. There is a risk here, right? It's reputational risk, legal risk, financial risk. We need to make sure that we talk about that risk and address it and see how we can solve that. So my third objective for today is, so how do we start, right? It's exciting, there is risk. So what we need to do is choose a use case that is relatively simple, low risk, specific domain, with a bunch of very skilled users that can help me increase the confidence of the bot. Work in some sort of a sandbox or a staging environment until you feel like it's high confidence enough, you can go live and test, measure the success, and then grow, expand beyond that and scale up. So that's how you start. You start small and you grow gradually. So find a use case that is high visibility for your leaders, that they can see the value, and then they will be willing to invest and do more with AI without some of the risk. And talking about a use case, how am I on time? Okay, I'm good. Talking about that, we need to find, so there are like common use cases for KM and AI that you see here on the screen. I'm going to touch maybe on a couple of them. Instant answers. We all communicated with Gen AI bots. We saw that it's remarkable how it aggregates answers from a large amount of content. So definitely, when you think about a use case for your end users, from a consumption perspective, this could be a very good thing. But you have to have governance. We talked about it earlier. You have to have governance in order to make sure that the Gen AI knows what is the source of truth, right? So you need to make sure that you address that if you want to have instant answers. Otherwise, it's not going to work, and we're going to introduce risk to the organization. The second one I want to talk about is content summary. That's an easy use case, actually, for content creation, content sharing, content management. It's an easy one because Gen AI can very easily read scan like 90 pages of content and provide you with a good summary that helps you do the BLAF or TLDR, whatever name you call it, some sort of a summary that helps user to understand what is the content. So content summary is an easy use case for you to implement. And last one I'm going to talk about is auto-tagging and auto-classification. If you define your knowledge architecture, if you define your taxonomy, metadata, etc., the ontology, and it's a reference point for the bot, it can really do magic by creating better findability for content and also connecting it to other things like connecting it to skills, connecting it to your service taxonomy, skills taxonomy, service taxonomy, and knowledge taxonomy. If they work together, you get amazing personalization and contextualization of content. So choose your use cases based on your needs, based on your challenges, and you'll get great things with AI. So start now, because it might take time with organizational knowledge to be able to gain some fruits. Start now, start small, but see results pretty quickly. All right. I know it's early. I'm West Coast, so I'm basically sleeping now when I'm talking to you. So imagine how I talk when I'm awake. But I do want to kind of summarize what we talked about. So we talked about three things, right? One is you need to broaden the way you think about KM as a business-led, technology-enabled solution, right? It's a program that is business-related. Second one is change the way you talk with your leaders about knowledge management as a source of growth, something you can capitalize on. And the third one is start small with AI, start innovation now, test it out, check your success factors, and grow gradually. As professionals, we are uniquely positioned, right? As CAM professionals, we can help with organizational growth, we can help with learning, we can help with reskilling, and we can really influence the bottom line. But we need to know where to start. And the way to start is to know where we are. So I highly recommend scan that QR code, take a rapid maturity assessment, come to our booth, talk to us about how we can help you address everything that we talked about so your maturity grows. And yeah. Thank you very much for your time today.
Terrific. Thank you. That was great.